one of the ways you know you're on the astral plane, if you're trying to find out where you are, if you really stop and say, where am I in consciousness? If you notice extreme polarization, you are on the astral plane. In a time when no one can make a statement without offending half of their audience, that's how you know you're on the astral plane. Hello and welcome to another edition of Planet Wave TV. I'm Eric Francis Coppolino, coming to you from upstate New York, here with a discussion of big astrology. That is to say, the astrology of the big, as in the very biggest planets known in our solar system. We will have some visual graphic representations of those in a minute, but I first want to introduce the pattern that is going on. So we are in a time of enormous changes by any measure, no matter how you look at the planets. Whether it was all of the interplanet retrogrades earlier this year, which involved the retrograde straddling a sign, that's kind of warpy and a little weird and interesting. The massive eclipse of 2024 leading into another massive eclipse in 2025. That would be in Aries. The Chiron-Eris conjunction, Pluto changing signs, Sedna changing signs. Okay, but all of that is kind of like it's not exactly a warm-up, but it will all temporarily fade into the background for what I am calling big astrology. The biggest, the biggest size doesn't really matter. We all know that, but big planets making a big pattern. We're looking at this. We've been looking at this here now for all of a couple of minutes, and I want to show you what this pattern involves. So the four planets I'm looking at, and I'm not looking at any other planets in this pattern. We've got lots of other videos on those. Are Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Neptune went in March. Saturn's about to come in a couple of days. Jupiter in Cancer, that starts in a few days. What have I got here? Well, I don't know. It's June 9th, I think. And then in July, Uranus arrives in Gemini. So these four planets matter because let's take a look. Let's take a look at them, and we got our first cue at 2:25. So you're looking at a composite of what are called the gas giants. Lately, I've noticed that astronomers are calling Uranus and Neptune ice giants. I'm going to keep them all. I'm going to call them all gas giants, and I'm going to refer to them as the transpersonal planets. There's some technical things here, but some people think Jupiter and Saturn are transpersonal, whatever. But these are the large concepts of our world. Now, Jupiter and Saturn, the ones on the left, were known to astronomy. They're visible in the night sky. I've heard rumors that Uranus is sometimes visible with the naked eye. I don't know anybody who has seen it. Neptune, definitely not visible with the naked eye. It's difficult to spot even under the best circumstances, even by the best minds like Galileo himself. Those four planets, the four planets that you're looking at, comprise 99% of the planetary mass of the solar system. 225, 335. Okay, we haven't done this with too many drop-ins yet. B-roll, it's called. B-roll. All right. So these four planets comprise 99% of the planetary mass of the solar system. The sun's another question. The sun represents 99% of the total mass of the solar system. That is to say, all the planets combined, including the gas giants, equal only 1% of the mass of the sun. But when we look at the planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus comprise 99% of the planetary mass. That is to say, Mercury, Earth, Venus, Mars, all the asteroids, all the trans-Neptunian objects like Pluto and all of its kind of moon type of things, and all the Trojan asteroids and all that. All of that comprises 1% of the planetary mass compared to Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, and Jupiter. All right, so let's let's go. Well, let's see. Let's go in approximate order that these things are happening. So, and I've got a little too much light on the subject here. We're going to turn down the light. As radio guy keeps getting accustomed to video, not the world's easiest transition. Okay, so currently Neptune is in Aries. That happened back in March. The last time Neptune was in Aries was in 1862. Before that, 1698. So whatever it may have meant then, including foreboding the Civil War, which is going on or hot right around the time of this ingress, and also the electronic age, because the telegraph was a big deal at this time, a very big deal. The ability to move information over hundreds or thousands of miles, that's symbolized by Neptune in Aries and late Pisces. So what we have now is Aries is the scene of all of this chaos and confusion of self associated with the digital plane. Most people don't know how out of sorts they feel. They just feel kind of cranky. They just kind of feel like there's something missing. Well, I'll tell you what's missing. That something missing includes their perception of their body. And so it's a little bit like the frustration of somebody who doesn't know that they're dead. Like I've heard credibly that there is a place where the hikers who died hiking at the Mohonk Preserve, where their spirits gather. And two friends of mine were walking by, and they hadn't discussed this ever before, and they both felt all of these discarnated souls hanging around this kind of rock overhang at the Mohonk Preserve, where they seemed to all gather. And they didn't know they were dead. They were trying to get back to their cars, for example. They couldn't find their way back to their cars, not realizing they had fallen off the mountain and died, and they no longer were in their body. Their body was long gone. This is something like this is going on now in the world that we live in, where we have basically all had this mass ascension. That was the big theme of 2012, right? The ascension, the ascension, the ascension. Dave Wilcock, the ascension, Graham Hancock, the ascension. All the 2012ers having all their panels and all their books. The ascension, the ascension. Oh, we're going to ascend. The ascension. Well, let me give you a little clue. We didn't ascend to 5D or nothing like that. 5D is still pretty low. We ascended to 4.5D, the electrical, digital, astral plane. Yes, we all simultaneously ascended, and some people know it, and some people do not know that they ascended to the astral plane. So we got our ascension, bro. And that means that many people are completely unconscious about the fact that they are essentially spirits floating around on the astral plane, and they can't quite connect the fulfillment and the desire and anything like that associated with physicality. And there's a kind of, it should have a special word, but you might call it disembodied digital resentment. Disembodied digital resentment. That is what's going on. And this is being inflamed by, exacerbated by Neptune in Aries. Spencer Stevens, holy rage. That's what he called it. Holy rage. Very good observation. Very nicely put together. He's a musician. Words to describe a situation that people are in. There's a lot of disembodied rage, but a lot of it is sanctimonious rage. A lot of it's holier than thou rage. And a lot of it's, I'm so holier than thou that you can't even question the concept of holier than thou, because that is in itself an affront to my holiness. So you can't question anything. This you can't question anything ethos, that is very Neptune in Aries. And the thing is that it's like the fire of Aries and the physical action of Mars is being kind of astrally, digitally clouded over by Neptune and Aries. Now, this has been going on for a long time, but I have noticed a palpable shift in the few couple of months that Neptune has been in Aries. Neptune in a few days is about to be joined by Saturn. I think that happens on the 24th or so. There's so many facts, but it's all happening within a couple of days. That Saturn enters Aries, believe that's the 24th. Then there's the Gemini new moon. All at the same time. And this is going to happen concurrently with the Chiron Eris conjunction. These are very tiny little planets, Chiron Eris conjunction, but the timing is big. All right, so this concentration of two massive worlds. I mean, Saturn 900 times the size of the Earth. Neptune probably 300-400 times the size of the Earth. This is a lot. That's taking up a lot of space and a lot of mass, and it's sitting on the Aries point. So what is the Aries point? Now you've heard, and I'm one of the only people who really goes on and on and on about the Aries point, but this happened after 9/11. I became hip to the Aries point, and Martha Lang Westcott, Treehouse Mountain Astrology, author of Mechanics of the Future and fabulous books on the asteroids, clued me in to this when we were deconstructing, we were doing the forensics on why so few astrologers, really none, predicted 9/11. And the predictability of 9/11 was based on a total solar eclipse on June 21st, on the summer solstice, approximately an hour into the summer season in the northern hemisphere, a massive total solar eclipse on 6/21/01 that should have put us all on notice that something big was happening. And since then, I've made a very careful study of the Aries point. That is to say, noticing when things are in aspect to it. And you get mathematical effect of the Aries point. You get an effect here at Imbolc. When the sun is here, that's called Imbolc. And when the sun is in the middle of Scorpio, that's called Samhain, Halloween, and so forth. So you have the Aries point active, and then you have everything at 45 degrees away from the Aries point active, and then you have a little sliver of the Aries point in very early in the mutable signs, but the big macha is 1 degree of Aries. It's called the sidereal vernal point. It's the location of the spring, location of the sun on the first day of spring. It's a very important point when it comes to reckoning the local horoscope based on the seasons and the bigger horoscope based on the stars. So that intersection, it's kind of intersectional, a favorite word nowadays. It is intersectional of the individual and the collective. And so when things happen on or around the Aries point, when there is a concentration of energy on or around the Aries point, you know that the intersection between the individual and the collective is getting busy. And currently, right now, as of this recording, Neptune is there. Neptune kind of is invisibility. Neptune is clouding the whole issue. Neptune is making it difficult to see what's going on, and the result of all of this digital disembodiment and the frustration and the anger and all that is just this form of what seems to me a kind of bitterness and resentment. But what most people have not figured out is it is the bitterness and the resentment of being cut off from their body and their senses and their ability to actually feel and actually reason, because we have been through an ascension. An ascension. It's supposed to be wonderful. We're supposed to be in 5D where there's unconditional love and everyone acts like a puppy or a kitten, and Jesus is there and Buddha is there and the ladies channeling group is there. I hate to tell you, but that is, first of all, that's not very ascended. We're nowhere near soul level when we get to 5D. Okay, we still got a lot of levels to go. We've got to get to there's a number of different planes to get to. You got to pass through the etheric plane and so forth. So 5D, nothing special. It's just like kind of a friendlier version of the astral plane, but we're not even there yet. We are stuck in a synthetic, digital astral plane. It is an electrical astral plane. That is the digital environment. That is where I'm coming to you in this wonderful full-color dream with my voice vividly represented. You could play it over 20 times if you wanted to. That's kind of a weird astral plane, right? Usually you can't find your way back to anywhere on the astral plane. There's places I occasionally stumble into on the astral plane that I would love to be able to get into consciously, but I can't find my way back. It happens by accident. Plus, by the way, speaking of the astral plane, all of this use of cannabis, people just hitting on their things all day long, hitting on their vapes. Oh, they look like this these days. It's like real casual. Like, they're like, a lot of them sucking nicotine, but a lot of them are high as a tree. And this too enhances the astral plane. So we must note that at the time that we have ascended to the astral plane and the digital environment is getting more and more all-consuming, more and more intense, so too is the consumption of cannabis in a great many people. All right, so Saturn to the rescue. So Saturn is now about to enter Aries. This happens in a matter of days from what I am speaking. And they are not exactly, they're not going to form an exact conjunction till February, but they're going to be hanging around within a degree or two of each other and a degree or two of the Aries point on and off into next spring, almost a year from now. And what Saturn, it seems to me like a logical proposal to say, Saturn is going to kind of wake us up to this fog that we're in, and it's going to summon us out of the fog. Now, a lot of the fog consists of digital overwhelm resulting in a cutoff. There is good theory about how we get stuck in this astral plane trying to find our way back to our car, or try to eat a good meal and feel like we ate something when it's all just a bunch of DoorDash that arrives in the form of like atoms. It's not kind of plasma. It's hard to have a good meal on the astral plane when everyone is so disembodied. So Saturn brings in an element of physicality. Saturn is at least going to provide the opportunity to consider that we might want to return to a physical state of consciousness and to some practical matters, and not have everything be a matter of opinion, a matter of preference, and a matter of being jerked around, not just emotionally, but jerked around on the astral plane. One of the ways you know you're on the astral plane, if you're trying to find out where you are, if you really stop and say, where am I in consciousness? If you notice extreme polarization, you are on the astral plane. In a time when no one can make a statement without offending half of their audience, that's how you know you're on the astral plane. How do you know? Polarization. Everything's either Summerland and so wonderful, or Nightmare Alley, and everything is going to come and get us and kill us. There's no gray area, but the fact of no gray area creates one huge gray area because most people don't want to polarize out. And so essentially there's Nightmare Alley and Summerland, and they disconnect from both, and they're kind of floating around in the ethers. Okay, so now to make things even more interesting, Jupiter is currently in late Gemini, right here. It's been here for about a year, and is going to enter Cancer. The Aries point, first of all, is boldly accessible through Cancer. When that eclipse happened, got to look at the screen so I'm not looking like down in the other direction, because the chart is that way for you and it's that way for me. Okay, so when this happened, this was the sun at 0008 Cancer for this massive total solar eclipse in June of 2001. It happened in the first degree of Cancer. So the first degree of Cancer is an active, very active part of the Aries point, potentially the most active part of the Aries point that is not exactly the Aries point itself. Though when you start to watch events, you do a lot of mundane astrology. This is not the kind of astrology you're going to learn from doing natal charts, doing psychological astrology. It almost has nothing to do with psychological astrology or natal astrology. Mundane astrology, which is most of what I do, is its own critter completely. And you have to study many, many news events to get a feeling for how these, for example, extensions of the Aries point work. But you could see that at the beginning of the summer when 9/11 happened, there was a massive eclipse right in the first degree of Cancer. Well, now we're going to have Jupiter showing up in the first degree of Cancer. I believe that's June 9th. I'm not getting out that computer again. And when it does that, it contacts the Aries point by way of Cancer, and it makes a square to Neptune, and it makes a square to Saturn. So this is a big pattern, and it is exact in June, and then Jupiter just keeps going. The Jupiter retrograde does not take it back far enough to be able to repeat this square to Saturn and to Neptune. Okay, so this is kind of it's not a grand cross, but I would call this a grand square pattern. And it's pretty grand because you've got one planet with 900 times the size of the Earth and another planet with 1,200 times the size of the Earth, plus Neptune about 400 times the size of the Earth. We're talking about most of the solar system lining up on the Aries point. What is this about? Now, what I am saying that it's about is I'm not impressed by any of this politics and all this Trump bullshit and elections and the World Health Organization. And I mean, I'm in touch with people who are on these stories, who are covering these things that seem to be big in the realm of like what's going on inside of this little arena. What's going on inside this little arena? Well, it seems like a big deal at the time. And it's all I can do. It's all I can do to ignore these stories because they're very tempting. They're very tempting to get into. The tariff war, everything seems like a big deal. Then it's not a big deal. It's straight down the memory hole. In 6 months, nobody's going to remember the tariff war. What I'm trying to focus on from a standpoint of news astrology is the big thing that I think, most people are missing. All astrologers are missing it, and it is not properly understood because who studies media environments? To understand what AI is, you have to have some experience studying media environments, the environment of services and of disservices that arises when a whole new concept of media completely takes over society. And I realize most people their news feed is siloed. They're only hearing about the things they like kind of read about yesterday. So if you have TDS and you're obsessed with what this guy's doing, then that's going to silo your news feed. Now, personally, I don't use news feeds. I rely on people to send me things that they are interested in. That's how I know what's going on. People like our old friend Cindy Tice-Ragusa, people like Sean Boyle. Cindy has her kind of list of stories she focuses on. She's also paying attention to AI. Sean Boyle exclusively sending me AI stuff, and various people in the community like that bring things to my attention. Facebook is a good place to send me those things. I only have one Facebook page, easy to find, my personal one, not the company's. So personally, as someone who is in a position of responsibility for knowing about a lot of things so that I have context, not so that I'm an expert in a lot of things, but so that I can fit any one event into its proper context, I have information coming at me from all different directions, and I'm paying attention to it, and I'm putting it together kind of like doing a lot of figure ground contrast. And I can tell you that as far as I am concerned, the biggest story, the turning point, the massive point of no return the human race is at is this complete, total ongoing, nonstop, around the clock, trillions of dollars being invested in this thing that simulates thought. It simulates the personality. It simulates consciousness. It simulates curiosity. It simulates the ability to form speech. It's all an illusion. It is all fake. There are people behind it. There are puppet masters behind it, but it's also this kind of fake where it's so fake the puppets take on a life of their own. And by the way, it was first rolled out in early 2022 with the video, I Am Not Morgan Freeman. I'm not Morgan Freeman. If you recall this one. Maybe can we cut to I Am Not Morgan Freeman for a second here? We're at 25:06. Let's see what that looks like.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
So that was the first viral deep fake. It was an announcement that nothing is what it seems to be, that anything can be faked. And you can get a phone call from your granddaughter. The phone can ring at 4 o'clock in the morning, and somebody made an AI deep fake of your granddaughter based on her TikTok videos, and suddenly she needs you to send her money, and here's the place to send the money, only it's not your granddaughter. It's a fake version of your granddaughter. And the problem is when everything is deep fake, everything can be deep fake, and that can include you. But what I'm really saying here is that the concept of AI, in its popular rollout, in my view, as something of an internet historian, was rolled out with the I Am Not Morgan Freeman deepfake. And then later in that year, ChatGPT was rolled out as there was a public release. I still have not done that chart. I will do that chart. This video is taken priority because it's happening sooner. But the idea that they roll out the atomic bomb of computers as chat. It's just chat. You're just chatting with this thing that's like HAL 9000 that could take over the ship and kill all the astronauts. Literally, actually, not figuratively. It is being laced into the entire computer network. At the industrial enterprise level, everything is having this installed. Well, that kind of fits the identikit of Neptune on the Aries point, fake self, Saturn, total structural change, and big on the Aries point. The personal is the collective. This morph of suddenly there's this great big computer that can pretend to be you? Ha! Come on. You're like, oh, la-di-da. It's just the next it's just the next iPhone. Oh, isn't it wonderful to have this remote control light where I can turn off it looks better. I can turn off the studio lighting. I'll dim that down a little bit. Very good. Oh, isn't this nice? Digital. No, this is not your average invention. This is not your average gadget. When the gadget can fake being you, for example, when it has access to essentially everything who you are, and the sticking point is that there is not total database integration. That's the sticking point, is that there's not total database integration. It's only a matter of time before every database is merged with every other database, and the thing's able to scan videos and scan audio, which you can transcribe these things and then read them. and then suddenly, like, where does that leave you? And the notion that there is this ascension going on, and that we are all basically being kind of stranded here, and that we don't know what's the real version of us and what's the fake version of us. And a lot of people feel kind of fake as it is, right? Plenty of people go through life feeling a little phony, right? You fake it till you make it. And like how people feel, when that awkward feeling of, walking into a room and not really being sure about very much, not really being sure who you are, and having that little sense of uncertainty, and maybe, feeling like a bit of a phony and all of that. Well, that already, I'm looking for this, that already existed. And now it's being radically amplified by Saturn, Neptune on the Aries point. And then Jupiter's going to come along and blow the thing 1,000 times larger. So we're looking at something that's already large. It's already a collective intersection with the personal. And it's big, and this lasts a long time. And then Jupiter comes sweeping through the pattern in June and takes it up like 10 orders of magnitude. So this says that what is going on has to be significant on a scale that is never before been seen and is incomprehensible. I mean, we've got the two rulers of Pisces, the modern ruler and the, stick a lot of warning quotes around it, the classical ruler, Jupiter, and add warning quotes, the modern ruler, in an aspect together. Neptune is fresh out of Pisces, so it's still carrying a lot of Pisces energy with it. Jupiter is entering not only a water sign, but the water sign where it's exalted. So I am seeing this as, if you work your way backwards from astrology that describes an incomprehensibly large seismic shift of some kind, you don't really have to look that far to see it, but you have to look a certain way to see it. You have to comprehend the scale of the issue, and you have to comprehend the scale of this thing that is falsely being called chat. I mean, that is so hideously cynical. I have no words for it. All right, now let's talk about the fourth of the gas giants. That would be Uranus. So, Uranus is well. Let's see now. I have a lot of notes I'm not reading from. But Uranus was last in this position in the beginning of Gemini. It's not going to get there till July 7/7. But it was last in this position in 1941 and 1942, right at the beginning of World War II. By the way, Neptune was, as I mentioned, in Aries at the beginning of the United States, quote-unquote, Civil War, the war between the states. Uranus at the beginning of World War II. This is pretty big. Jupiter, by the way, was in Cancer 2001, the beginning of the longest war in U.S. history, the Iraq-Afghanistan Bush War II, which went on for more than 20 years, more if you count back to 1990. And then Uranus enters in 1941-42, takes 84 years to go around the zodiac, and it is about to be back in Gemini. And so not only is Uranus back in Gemini, it too is going to form an aspect pattern which lasts easily a year or more. It'll be in force in some form even a year from now, in the summer of 2026. That is a sextile pattern. So here with Jupiter doing this orange stuff, that's a square. That is a trigger aspect. The concept of a square is something happens. With Uranus making its aspect to Saturn and Neptune, that is a sextile. And that is like something is available to happen. Something can happen. There's very good traction. Squares seem to happen to us, or they compel action. Sextiles are about the availability of something. They kind of represent a kind of a freedom. There's a 60-degree aspect. There's 6 to the wheel, so you have a lot of options. It's going to be picking up anything that's going on early in many different signs. I mean, so for example, Uranus in Gemini is going to be trine Pluto in Aquarius, currently at 3. It's going to be conjunct Sedna in the first degree of Gemini, and then you could look throughout the solar system and basically see trans Pluto is here. We've got logos here. We've got a lot of things going on here. But mainly what I'm here to talk about is these lines drawn in pink. And so whatever that means exactly, what it implies is that there is contact between these planets. And all of this forms one aspect pattern, one main aspect pattern that is working together. And so normally these planets can be splayed out all over the place. You never know where they're going to be. They may be an aspect, they may not be an aspect. But now they're all working in concert. One last thing I will say, I want to keep this video a little bit shorter, we're already at 35 minutes, is that the square of Jupiter and Saturn, it happens like, now I've got to get the computer out for this. The cycle of Jupiter and Saturn is, I think, a 20-year cycle. So let's take a look at this and see. And Jupiter and Saturn are always significant when they are in aspect. There's always something that is palpable, tangible, a kind of necessary thing that is going on. But Jupiter square Saturn has this feeling of the last chance. It's like it feels like a last opportunity to do something. And it can come with the sense of desperation that we are feeling. So the last time Jupiter and Saturn were square was 2016. Prior to that, 2006. And the current square is in its third iteration. It happened August 19th, 2024 in the mutable signs. Then it happened December 24th, 2024 in the mutable signs, that is to say Gemini to Pisces. And now the June 15th, 2025 event is going to happen in the cardinal signs. This is why I'm jumping up and down, is because everything happening with 99% of the mass of the solar system is happening right in the first degrees of the cardinal signs. That's the Aries point. That's the individual and the collective. The size, the scale is immense. The influence, the impact on the individual is absolutely astonishing. And so you therefore have to take an honest survey of what is going on in society and say, well, what matches that? And it's not a bunch of bullshit political stuff. All of that stuff is just merely a distraction. It's merely meat for the dog to chew on while the burglars are robbing the house. So if you think that you're kind of doing yourself a big favor by keeping up on the latest news out of the White House every day, I would say no. You are completely hypnotized. That is absolutely irrelevant. The stories become irrelevant. They drop into absolutely nothing. The biggest news story on one day is gone the next day. What happened to the ship? The ship hitting the bridge, knocking the whole bridge down. That was a big deal. What happened? What was another really big one? The trade war. That's over. Los Angeles burning down. That was like, wow, what's going on? Los Angeles. Who was the robot on Lost in Space? Will Robinson. Gone. No one's taught. No one. The LA suburbs burned down, and that's it. Old news. Down the memory hole. Never happen again. What? It's astonishing. This stuff should be news for a year. We should be talking about it for a year. What happened to all those people? How did that happen? Why did that happen? Gone. So the entire news cycle has become this hypnosis cycle. And to some extent, yeah, it's always been like that, but it's different when it was newspapers. It was different when there was TV news that was on at like 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, then the 10 o'clock news, not pounding you around the clock all day and all night, and siloed. Where if you're interested in that one kind of news, the algorithm is going to keep feeding you that kind of news, and you're going to think that's the only thing going on. If you're clicking on stuff about Trump, you're going to think that's all that's going on, and it's the most important thing. So to get out of that hypnosis, you have to take a much broader survey of what is going on in life, what is going on in the world. And in closing, my pitch for astrology is that it requires you to be circumspect. You cannot. It's very hard in astrology to silo yourself into one house of the zodiac. Like, you're going to think. People do it. People manage to do it. For example, there are people who, one big silo going on right now is a sixth house silo. The sixth house, health and wellness. So there's 20 billion Odysseys and BitChutes and Substacks and YouTubes and Facebook things and the reels coming up every 20 seconds. Health and wellness, health and wellness, health and wellness. How to be the perfect, do the perfect yoga stretch. How many steps every day should I walk? That top doctor warns, don't eat blueberries. Well, let me tell you something. Top astrologer warns, don't eat blueberries for breakfast. This is going to be my rise to fame and fortune. Don't eat blueberries for breakfast. Well, this complete obsession with the sixth house, which was pretty bad before COVID. But now it's just like week after week after week and people doing the same video over and over again. So there's a sixth house obsession going on. What's lacking is a kind of a ninth house obsession. Whoa, spirituality, the soul, growth, personal growth, therapy, nice ninth house thing. Therapy is sixth and ninth, but there's no therapy going on in the sixth house right now, and there's very little going on at all. But the ninth house of the pursuit of knowledge, wow, it's all just, there's just one big question mark, not even being asked. It's like this. It's more like this. No question marks. Power. That's popular. Power. Ooh, power. Ooh, power. Executive order. Election. Power. Lawsuit. Power. We're getting a little bit of the ninth here. But what we're seeing with the lawsuit style, but what we're seeing with the ninth is, sorry, I'm going off on a little bit of an extra unplanned rant on the houses, is, well, the courts are completely ineffectual now. Everything's gone into the 10th house. Power, 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 executive order. We're going to get you. ICE is coming, and it kind of is. But no one has governance. So we've got a sixth house concentration going on. We've got a ninth house, a 10th house concentration going on. Power, power, power. And while we're at it, there's kind of this obsession with everything in the so-called community realm, the social realm, and that's Aquarius, and we're still being driven by computers. Who meets in person? If you recently met someone in person and you had more than one date with, one date, I'll be happy with one date. Tell me, all the socializing is going on computer first, and then it's taken to the physical realm. Maybe. Most of it's sticking on the physical, in the non-physical, in the disembodied astral plane, in the 4.5D ascension. All right, I'm gonna call it a day. Happy to have your comments. Please like the channel. We're at 4,480 subscribers to this. We just need a little more than 500 more subscribers to get to the magic 500 mark. Please click like. Please share. And you can write to me at any time, efc@planetwaves.net. We remain planetwaves.net. One of the best places to get me is my Substack. Go to planetwaves.net, visit our Substack, and you will find that I am generally accessible and usually pretty cheerful. Not every day, but almost every day. So once again, thank you for listening. Lots of love, and bye for now.